Okay, guys, I am going to show you your review sheet solutions. I will, of course, post your answer key in Google Drive. So I want you to take a look at number one. I'm going to try to explain to you what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. In number one, I am going to solve by square root. Okay, for one and only one reason, because your BX term is missing. Okay, notice there is no like 3x in the middle there. So because it's missing that middle term of ax squared plus bx plus c, I can solve by square root. So remember, you want to get the squared term isolated. So I'm going to divide both sides by 2 and get x squared equals 25. And then I can take the square root of both sides. Just be careful. I know a lot of you will just write 5. But understand that there's two numbers that when squared gives you 25. Not only positive, but negative 5. Okay, you could show your solution plus and minus 5. Just know there are two answers. Again, let me just reiterate. If you go into the calculator and type 2x squared equals 50, here they are, negative 5, positive 5. You should immediately know your answers. Okay. In the next one, I'm just asking you to simplify. Don't use 8 and 9. You need two numbers that multiply to 72, where one of them is a perfect square. 36 and 2 are the way to go. 2 can't be broken down any further. 36 is a perfect square. A lot of you were breaking things down and you weren't even using perfect squares. One of them must be a perfect square, and it should be first, because the square root of 36 is 6. Bring down your radical 2 and you're done. Remember, I hate radical 8. If you have a radical 8 in your answer, here's what people will say. Rad 72, and they'll say 9 and 8, and then they'll show 3 rad 8. This is wrong, because radical 8 can still be simplified. It would be 4 and 2, and then it's 3 times 2 radical 2, which is 6 radical 2. You still get the same answer, but so much more work, okay? So be careful. Okay, in number 3, we are going to once again solve by square root. You could take the square root of both sides. And here, kind of nice, x plus 3 equals, don't forget, both the positive and the negative, square root of 7. And you're going to move that 3 over to the other side. So x equals, always put that number first, negative 3 plus or minus rad 7. The 7 can't be simplified, so that should be the answer you're looking for. Choice 3, negative 3 plus minus rad 7. Okay, I want to say something about this answer. This answer, okay, which is negative 3 plus rad 7 and negative 3 minus rad 7, okay? There are two roots. They are irrational. Okay, so let me just show you this. If you had x plus 3 squared equals 7, let's say I put that equation in. Okay, x plus 3 squared equals 7. And I touch on my roots. Crazy irrational number. Crazy irrational number. Now, what did we say those roots were? Negative 3 plus radical 7. Look at that number. Negative 0.35. They match. Negative 0.35424, whatever. What was the other one? Negative 3 minus radical 7. Okay, there's that number. Negative 5.6. So you can check yourself. Just understand when you see those irrational numbers, that's because we're doing solving by square root or complete the square. It's not factorable, so you're not going to get nice numbers. Okay, let's look at the next one. In this next one, number 4, you need to get your squared term by itself. You have that extra step of, since 3 is being multiplied by x minus 4, don't distribute it. You would never distribute it because you would have to do the exponent first, but you want to get the squared term by itself. Divide by 3 to get x minus 4 squared equals 9. Now I want you to take note. That's a perfect square. Okay, so when you now go to take the square root of both sides, you wind up with x minus 4 equals plus or minus 3. And when you add 4 to both sides, you're actually allowed to simplify that. That becomes 3 plus 4 and negative 3 plus 4, which is 7 and 1. That's your answer. Your solutions are 1 and 7. So I could double check. If I do 3 times x minus 4 squared, so let me get rid of this, and prove to you that 3 times x minus 4 squared equals 27, there they are, 1 and 7. Okay, so there's a rhyme and reason. Those, you know what this means? This means this was factorable. When you come out with numbers like 1 and 7, they're rational because it must have been factorable. Okay, and you knew it was factorable when you saw that perfect square on the other side. Okay, in number 5, we're going to move this 5 over. So you have x minus 1 squared equals 16. So there's that perfect square again. When you now take the square root of both sides, I have x minus 1 equals plus or minus 4. So if I now add 1 to both sides, that's gone. I have x equals positive 4 plus 1 and negative 4 plus 1, giving me a 5 and a negative 3. So those are my solutions. Negative 3, positive 5. Again, you could check it in the calculator. Okay, everything changes with number 6. Number 6 is going to change because I want you to see this term? It has the bx term. You can't solve by square root anymore. So you're going to solve the only other way we knew how, which was to complete the square. Okay, you should be saying to yourself, oh wait, is it factorable? But when you see all of these answers, look at the answers with the radical 5s. These are all irrational numbers. Terrible radical 5. You'll have a big long decimal, which means not factorable. Okay, which means you're going to add 16 to both sides. It's going to tell you, get yourself ready for the magic number. So how do I get my magic number? I'm going to take half of my b term. It's all about this b term right here, the 4, positive 4. Half it, square it, share it. 4 is going to go to both sides. Now, why do I do this? Because this is now factorable. I made it become factorable. The same exact number times itself, okay, is going to give you 4 and add to 4. And it's got to be x plus 2. The easy way to always remember that is, see how this is positive 4? It's always half that number inside the parentheses. On this side, it's 20. So now when I take the square root of this side and this side, I get x plus 2 equals plus or minus, you can break down 20. Don't tell me 10 and 2. That doesn't make sense. Neither are perfect squares. 4 and 5 are your two numbers because 4 is the perfect square. So that becomes x plus 2 equals plus or minus 2 rad 5. But what do I have to do here? I have to move that 2. So I'm going to bring it over here, running out of room. I'm going to subtract 2 from both sides. So you know what a lot of you will do? You'll try to cross out both sides. On the left side, it crosses out. On the right side, negative 2 and positive 2 can't be simplified. They're not like terms. This 2 has a rad 5 next to it. So it's negative 2 plus or minus 2 rad 5. Negative 2 plus or minus 2 rad 5. It's choice 2. That is your answer. I don't like that color. Okay? Okay, in the next example, you are given an equation and they say, what's the next correct step? So first it looks like how they go from the first line to the next line, they added 10. Okay, the 10 was gone and all of a sudden 98 became 108. The next step, they divided both sides by 3 because now the 3's are gone and now you have 108 divided by 3 is 36. What's the next step here? Take the square root. So if I wrote 2x minus 3 squared equals 36, and I take the square root of both sides, square root of this side, square root of this side, I wind up with just 2x minus 3 equals, don't forget, plus and minus. This is a perfect square. You're not breaking it down. Comes right out of the radical 6, which was choice 3. Okay, that's the next correct step. In this next one, you're being asked to complete the square. You have to complete the square because, look, you have this middle term of 6x, negative 6x. Now, again, I have to say this to you. That means you can't solve by square roots. You have to complete the square, so get yourself ready. The first thing you're going to do is move the 12 over. Okay, so you have x squared minus 6x plus a blank equals 12 plus your blank. So how do I get my magic number? I take my negative 6, my b term, half of it, negative 3, square it, positive 9. That number, that magic number is always, no matter what, positive. Okay, so now remember, what's going to be in this parenthesis? It's always half of that middle term. It has to be x minus 3. And again, let me reiterate. What two numbers multiply to 9 and add to negative 6? Negative 3 and negative 3. Negative 3 times negative 3 gives you 9. Negative 3 plus negative 3 gives you negative 6. So that makes sense because it's squared. That equals 21. And that should be your answer. You didn't have to go any further. X minus 3 equals 21. Okay, in the next one, I want you to notice, I'm going to star it. It's missing bx term, which is great. That means you could solve by square root. So I am going to add 8. So now I have 5x squared equals 60. If I divide by 5, I now have x squared equals 12. So when I get x squared equals 12, I'm now ready to take my square root, both sides. 12 can be broken down. I don't want to use 6 and 2. I can't use 6 and 2. I have to use 4 and 3 because 4 is a perfect square. So it's plus and minus 2 rad 3. That's your two answers. Again, I could show it plus and minus 2 rad 3. Okay, and my last one, again, they're telling us to complete the square. They kind of set it up nice where they put the constant over. So I'm going to rewrite this with my magic number. Okay, and let's get ourselves that magic number. So again, take half of the b term, square it, share it. What two factors multiply to 4 and add to 4? And again, it's always half of this, x plus 2. And what does that equal? 6. So now take the square root, and I get x plus 2 equals plus and minus rad 6. Don't try to break down rad 6 into 2 and 3. Neither are perfect squares. So I'm just going to move that 2 over, and x equals, it's not letting me write, hang on. Okay. X equals -2 plus and minus rad 6. And those are your solutions. You could check it in the calculator, but that's it. That's the review sheet. Tomorrow I will do a little extra help if you need it. You let me know. Check your answers and I'll post the answer key.